Number one, need for approval. If your need to be liked is higher than your need to be effective, you will lose.
Welcome to the Startup Sales Talks episode with James Abraham from Sandler. He's currently CEO of Israel, and he also is a host of the podcast Secret Sauce of Selling. So make sure to check it out. And James, thanks for finding a time to jump on the pod. How you're feeling, and how was your Passover with the family?
Thanks, Dom. Yeah, Passover was good, and excited to be here.
Amazing. So let's start with you. So it's a rare case when you are going to talk more about yourself than you're going to ask more questions about the guests, right? Because you're usually on the other side of the fence.
I'm in the buyer's seat. I'm in the buyer's seat this time.
Yeah, exactly. So let's talk about your sales career. So where it started and how it evolved over the years and leading you to the position where you are right now.
Yeah, so I'm 50 years old, and my sales career started the moment I was born. And I came out my mother, and I was screaming my head off. I was just begging for attention. And so right then and there, I guess, I mean, that's that's right. I mean, I think most people are born salespeople because they're just born sales babies. Because think about it, we're born and we just want attention, right? So yeah, but on a serious note, the first time I experienced a sales environment the magic, I mean, if you're in sales, there was one time where you just suddenly it all clicked. And I was 10 years old, and my grandmother, who's actually turned 100 last week, she had a shop in London, and she was selling silver antiques. And I used to sit there and watch her do it. And I was fascinated by the human factor. I was fascinated by the way people reacted when they wanted things, the way they reached out to touch things. My grandmother used to push them away. If someone liked something, she would just say, no, that's not for you. And then the buyer would just say, oh, yes, it is. And funnily enough, it would be the easiest sell ever. So it really started by observing as a kid. And this is my third career at being in the sales performance business. My first career, I was in the diamond industry for about 10 years. And then, when you want to really see what makes people tick, then that industry will definitely show you. And for better or for worse, I'll say. And then in 2008, when that recession started to hit, just before I went to university, I had a few degrees, and I really said to myself, wow, diamonds will probably be the first thing people stop buying. And then the last thing they'll start buying when things get better, and I better find myself something better to do. And so I went into the tech industry, and I was in tech for about 10, 12 years. And my last role of VP sales in fintech, and we're doing around 50 million euro a month of sales and turnover. And I was thinking to myself, wow, so many companies are making mistakes. It was driving me nuts. I was just noticing that no one really had process in place. For years, it was just, I'm a process guy. And I was thinking to myself, everyone's making these mistakes. The buyer's doing this, the seller's doing that. No one's aligned. There's got to be a better way. And then I came across Sandler, and I decided to join the Sandler network and become a Sandler trainer. And I'm in the sales performance business. I help individuals and organizations solve their cancers, and issues in order to be super successful and just completely shatter those glass ceilings that they feel are holding them back.
Got it. And so you work with various size companies, right? Starting from the startups all the way, let's say, to the enterprise level companies, right?
Correct. Yeah. So I have a rule. I'll never turn someone away that wants to learn and be better. And at Sandler, we have the ability to provide performance and growth, not only to companies, but also individual contributors. So I have clients that are individual contributors, just salespeople that want to be extremely successful, and there are the top performers in their companies, and they actually work with us on an individual level. And then also SMBs, mid-market, enterprise, and you name it. Sandler, we pretty much have a solution for every one that actually wants to implement process to be more successful in sales and revenue.
Got it. Can you share, let's say, one example, recent example from startup world? Since our audience, are mainly from startups, maybe you coach like CBDO, chief sales officer, CEO to execute sales, or kind of you elevate the startup sales game to another level. Maybe you can share one example.
Yeah, so typically CEOs and founders, chief business development officer, or CROs. I think CROs are also something that everyone's just it's a really sexy role, and everyone is kind of really trying to, I'd say, prematurely bring that role, which is okay. I get it, but for the most part, when they reach out to me, it's usually because they've hired a bunch of people. The founders that know how to sell what they've built. They get the pain. They've already, for them, it's pretty easy to do it. They can make those sales, but then they need to scale their business, and they hire salespeople, hoping these salespeople will bring in the magic to actually. And what happens is the complete opposite. What they're doing is they're usually hiring people with a lot of baggage, negative baggage that they've accumulated throughout their career. And many times CEOs tell me, "Oh, James, look, I've just found someone with 10 years of experience." And James, will you help us in an interview? And I help organizations really interview and just make sure that they're hiring the right people. And I say to them after having a conversation with that candidate, I say, "Listen, Mr. CEO, how can I tell you without offending you? I don't think this person has 10 years of experience. I think this person has 1 year of experience 10 times over." And that's what we do find. They're bringing them in, and they're hoping that this person will deliver, when in fact this person lacks a lot of important skills and has a lot of baggage and head trash and things that hold them back. And they'll just go through hire and fire and hire and fire, and they're just like seeing themselves, why on earth can't we sell? And so for the most part, a lot of startups, a lot of founders recently, especially during this period right now where everything's kind of shaky and everyone's just trying to figure stuff out, buyers are not parting for their money very fast. Decisions aren't being made. Buyers aren't really sharing a lot very much these days either. They're feeling very skeptical about what's going on. So yeah, I think that's a huge element of what's going on right now. They either don't have system and process in place, or methodology for that matter, or they have something in place, but they're still hiring people and hoping that those people will bring something in that they don't have. And eventually what they're doing is just going through the same motion over and over. I don't know if that sounds relevant to anyone that's listening or sounds familiar.
Yeah, to your point, actually, I used to work with former Google head of sales for the whole North American region. And that was a Series B startup. And he joined from the corporate experience. And that's a usual mistake that I see, that they think that they will bring the corporate CRO and they will do wonders in the startup, but it's absolutely different ballgame. So it didn't prove as a very good hiring decision, let's say. So
yeah, when it comes to, in my world, there are three main areas that I focus on. One is the sales performance piece. So prospecting, pipeline management, margin protection, closing, strategic account management. Then there's the sales management piece. That sales management piece, a sales leader or a sales manager has 5 hats. They have to hire the right people and onboard them well. They have to supervise them properly, and that does not mean micromanage them. They have to train them, coach them, and mentor them. Those 3 hats are very, very different. And so they have to know how to utilize the right hats at the right time. It's a skill set. And what happens in most companies is you'll have maybe a CEO, he'll have a sales guy. The sales guy will be pretty good. And then he'll say one day, "All right, congratulations, you're now promoted to manager or VP sales." And then maybe even CRO. I've seen that. I've seen someone go from salesperson to CRO in like 2 years. And here's the thing, that moment, what's going on is that company they've lost a really great salesperson and they've gained a terrible manager. So they lose twice.
Great point.
And yeah, so the sales management piece, that is a skill set. If you ask sales managers, anyone gone to sales management school, everyone will look at you like you're falling off the moon. And they say, "Oh, well, I've got an MBA." Well, MBA is nice, but it's not elite. It's not a management. They don't teach you how to manage an MBA. I got an MBA. They just don't teach you how to manage it when you do an MBA. They don't really go through a process where they're learning the relevant skill sets that are necessary to set their people up for success. And so what's going on is they're actually setting up for failure because they're just hoping people will bring in it. In sales, we have something called hopium. If you're in sales, you probably really hope that you'll close the deal, right?
Yep.
Salespeople, they hope a lot. The hope is not a strategy. And a little bit in my world, sales is science. It's not, the art is in the application. But at the end of the day, it's all science. The psychology of it, the process orientation of it, and so on. But also leaders have hope. They have hopium too, because they hope the salesperson that they hire will be successful. And I always ask people, do you use a external objective measuring tool to figure out if you're hiring the right person? What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? How will you work those? And a lot of them, they just tell me that they have an interview and they ask a ton of questions and they feel that they feel that they know how to hire because they're hiring gut. They're making an emotional decision. The problem is when you're hiring someone in a sales role, it needs to be a rational, logical decision. And it's really hard to do if you're not utilizing external objective tools to support that decision making. So that's the sales management piece. And then finally is a leadership for excellence piece, which is working alongside CEOs and founders and business owners in order to help them overcome their own head trash, their own hopium, their own issues. I have a magic model when it comes to leadership. MAGIC. M stands for making decisions. So a lot of times CEOs tell me that they're really good at what they do, but they're struggling to make decisions. They don't really have a process to do that. No one really taught them. If you think about it, no one really teaches us how to make decisions.
Principles
even in university.
Decisions, right? Just to have a principle for that.
Exactly. I mean, if anyone who's listening and watching this has children, I don't know how much time and effort you put into helping your children develop the skill sets necessary for decision making, because they don't teach that at school.
Yeah,
it's crazy. And so it's just like one of those things. Okay, let's throw someone into life and hope they'll figure that out. It's one of the most important elements in life. And so M stands for making decisions. They're struggling to make decisions, or they feel that they're okay making decisions. The problem is their people don't make decisions. So their salespeople, the project managers, operations, everyone else, no one's really making any decisions. And those decisions, especially in startups, are starting to pile up onto that CEO's desk. And then the CEO is like, wakes up one day, he's like making everyone else's decisions for them, and they've actually conditioned him to do so. And so what's going on is something called learned helplessness, where the CEO has actually enabled them over time, not because they're bad people, simply because that's how it's unfolded, and because their people have actually conditioned them to doing their work. I know it sounds a little crazy. So that's the M piece of making decisions. A stands for accountability. They tell me that they're struggling to hold their people accountable. And I always say this now, these days, I'm like, accountability out. Accountability is useless. Ownership in. But even ownership, they're just struggling with that. And so that's that. Or some of them tell me that they don't have anyone else to hold them accountable. CEOs tell me, I want to have an environment where I can be held accountable. G stands for growth, personal, professional, especially in the startup world. A lot of startup owners and CEOs and founders tell me, James, I'm working in my business all the time. I'm working in the business and they're not growing. So the company is growing. It's not even growing in the pace they were hoping, but they feel that they're getting left behind. They're not growing, not professionally nor personally. I stands for isolation relief. They feel alone. They don't have an environment where they can share their biggest issues without someone having some kind of an agenda or bias. And I also stand for imposter syndrome. That's something we're going to talk about today.
Absolutely.
And I think that's true for sales and leadership. Imposter syndrome is a huge element. And finally, C stands for change management. So, and you're in the startup business and your business is supposed to change. It's the way it works. But people don't like to change. And so if you're leading a company and your trajectory is supposed to go one specific direction, but you feel your people are not aligned on that, that's usually because there's a change management element. And another piece of that is conflict management. So once you do introduce change, what happens from a conflict management perspective? Because people they just don't like change. And so conflict starts to surface and drama and all that crap. Anyway, back to our point. From a leadership perspective, that's a lot of stuff that we support leaders on. And so that's, you've got the sales performance, you've got the sales management, and then you've got the leadership piece.
Okay. And so when I speak with startups, usually post-seed startups, they tell, okay, that right now is the time when we need a scalable sales process. we're going to implement Medic, or we're going to implement some kind of other system, and they fail miserably after a few months, right? So it's hard. It's hard to kind of build that repeatable system, and as you said, to make it a science instead of like luck or hopium or other things, right? So what would be your take on this, and what startups should focus on? What kind of fundamental things they should have in mind to build that scalable process and make it as much science as possible?
Yeah, good question. So I think one is you got to figure out, first of all, I think most people don't understand what methodology even is. I'll be honest with you. And so I like to explain it from a perspective of you have a process in place. Okay. So there's process. Now, a lot of companies, you'd be surprised, don't even have the process, but let's pretend they did. All right. And so they got some kind of process. It could be some kind of a guideline or some kind of way of doing things. Right. So once you have the process, then you come in with the selling system. Now, I'm going to be honest and tell you, I mean, I'm a Sandler guy. So for me, Sandler is like the best, And so you put your selling system on your process, then you have methodology. So process is the what, which I'm a huge believer in. And then the selling system is the how. The problem is that most companies don't even have the what, or they've got 5 or 10 different versions of the what in their company. Does that make sense? And everyone's just doing it their own way. It's more reactive and it's more hopium based, and it's more following the buyer as opposed to following our process. And I mean, if anyone's listening to this and in sales and you're maybe struggling and you're like struggling with your buyer and your buyer taking ownership of this and you're sitting there and waiting and following up, I don't even know what following up is. My clients don't follow up. It doesn't exist. People tell me, oh, we're following up. What the hell does that even mean? The F word? The worst thing you could ever do is following up. It's just a bad, I'm trying to keep my mouth kind of, but it's just a shitty excuse because the salesperson doesn't know what to do with his job. So he just follows up. I do a ton of videos on, I call it the F word. Don't use the F word in sales. Yeah. And so if you think about it, it's the what that a lot don't know. And then it's the how, which brings them in. So from my perspective, when it comes to this, it's one, you have, what are you doing? And then how are you doing it? And I'm going to go back to that point. If you are struggling, Mr. Salesperson or the Miss Salesperson who's listening to this, or even Mr. Founder, and you're thinking to yourself, the buyer is ghosting me, or the buyer is pulling you, or the buyer is telling us what to do. I want to ask you this question. How many times in their career does your buyer buy what you sell? And if you're selling technology, ask yourself that. Especially if you're a startup and you're solving a pain that no one else solves, that they don't even know they have. How many times in their career, how many times a decade do they buy what you sell? Or even a year? Once, maybe twice, tops 3 times. Now, you, Mr. Salesperson, Miss Salesperson, Mr. Founder, Miss Founder, you sell this all day, every day. Who's the expert? Who needs to maintain control of the process? Which brings me to the imposter syndrome piece.
Absolutely. So let's talk about imposter syndrome. When I asked you to join the pod, one of the things that I told you that at least in the Baltic states and in Lithuania, people are struggling with imposter syndrome oftenly. Because of the various things, historical things, and how people are perceived and blah, blah, blah. So they usually discriminate themselves, and they are, much less confident that they're supposed to be considering their results and performance, let's say in general, right? Or they are not speaking out loud about their performance. And again, usually we're struggling with the salespeople. This is all I can tell. But it's getting better. Anyway, James, so how to overcome that imposter syndrome for salespeople? What is your opinion and take on this?
Yeah, so I think we have to split this into 2 parts. One is understand where it's coming from. Now, 3 parts. Understand where it's coming from. 2, make a commitment and a decision to be better. And 3, take action and change. And so with your permission, Dom, let's start with the beginning and understand why, where does imposter syndrome even come from? And so if anyone's in sales, and you probably know the feeling where you have to call a stranger and you're asking yourself, do I really want to make the call? Do I not want to make a call? And then you call, oh, you know what, I'll go make some coffee. I'll think about it. And they go make coffee, right? And they come back and they say, well, let me just check on LinkedIn again. Just make sure. Maybe they posted something in like 5 seconds. In the 5 seconds I went to make coffee, maybe something else. So they go on LinkedIn and they look again. And so, you know what, I think I'm going to go and ask if someone knows them so I can get a warm introduction. So they're giving themselves a lot of different type of excuses. We call this creative avoidance. There's actually a term for this behavior.
Procrastination.
And and where does this come from? And it comes from one basic place. Look, our brain is hardwired in a certain way. Our brain is not hardwired for success. Our brain is not hardwired for 2024. Our brain is hardwired for survival. It's hardwired for 200,000 BC. It's hardwired to run away from dinosaurs and wild animals and keep us safe. It's not hardwired to pick up the phone, call a stranger, and ask them questions about their money impact issues. And when we were kids, what did our parents tell us? Don't talk to strangers. It's not polite to speak about money. And stop asking so many freaking questions. And then we grow up and we go out to the big bad world, and what are we expected to do to make a living? Ask questions of strangers about money.
You hit the point. It's so good.
Yeah. And so to any salesperson out there, I'm probably going to get a lot of unfollows right now. However, if any issue you have in your sales right now, guess whose fault it is? Yep. Mom and dad. And if you have any children, make sure they can still be saved. They can still be saved. It's all about our conditioning. We're human beings. We're like a sponge for the first, and we all know this, right? For the first 7-8 years, we're like a sponge. Whatever, we don't even realize what we're taking in. And throughout time, those scripts that we hear, they then go down to our subconscious. And so I think for the first part is us understanding where does this imposter syndrome originate. Now, I see this all the time. I'll have AEs I'm working with, and they're like a huge company. There's a company everyone knows. I won't say the name. Huge CRM company. And there was a guy there, an AE. His job was to talk to CMOs.
Chief marketing officers.
And he could not pick up the phone and talk to CMOs. I'm like, dude, what's wrong? Like, oh, no, he's a CMO. He's a C-level. I'm just an AE. I'm like, but that's your job. Oh, no, but that you don't understand, James. They don't talk to people like me. I'm like, really? Who told you that? Where is that written? And so that is that head trash, the baggage I mentioned. And he might have been in a role before this role, or 2 roles before, where he might have heard someone continuously say, CMOs don't talk to people like us. It won't work. I'm not calling them. And then that has become someone's truth. And they have gone from company to company. Now, when you're hiring a salesperson, you don't know that's in his head, right? Would it be nice to know?
Preferably.
Well, then call me. Call James, and I will show you how to uncover that information, because that will cost you your business. You know, how much is a bad hire worth? Millions. It's millions. There's a very simple calculation to it. In sales and executives, a bad hire is a 10 to 25x of an annual salary, even if you fire that person or they've left after 3 months. Even if you've hired a winner and that winner is in your company and he's surrounded by losers, he will leave in 3 months. He won't stick around. And even him will cost you a 10 to 25x of whatever you would have paid him over a year, even if you left after 3 months. You need to really comprehend those numbers. You know, so at the end of the day, that imposter syndrome, and we all have it. The only question is, what do we decide to do about it? Right? And I have a rule. I used to have a rule, it's a Sandler rule, fake it till you make it. David Sandler used to say, fake it till you make it. I have a better rule. Be it till you make it. Be it till you make it. What have you got to lose? I think a lot of people just don't invest in themselves well enough. They just don't do the work. Everyone just want to be easy. Everyone wants it easy. And again, I don't want to offend anyone. Can I be brutal?
Yeah, absolutely, James. Go.
Okay.
Yeah,
if we're in a sales role and we're supposed to do things, we're supposed to be courageous. And I say this, you don't have to be courageous from 9 a.m. till 6 p.m. You just need to be courageous a few seconds at a time. But if you're not courageous at the right time for the right reasons, then it's either one of four reasons. You're either lazy, stupid, don't know, or don't care. That's it. No offense to anyone out there. That's what we find. And, I'm in the courage business. That's what we do. We help people become more courageous, build a spine, not a wishbone, build a backbone, not a wishbone. And sales is all about us overcoming our own fears. And a lot of people say, well, sales is so bad. It's so difficult. I don't like it. Or they say, I could only be a salesperson. And I'm like, dude, sales has let you in. Own the part. When everyone rejected you, medical school rejected you. Lawyers, legal, you want to become a lawyer, that rejected you. This rejected you. Who took you in? Sales. Act the part. It's not for the softies. Softies don't work in sales. They work in support. No offense. That's good. That's perfectly okay. We need good support people too. That's important. I don't want to talk to a douchebag support person. I want to talk to a nice, good support person that can solve my problems and calm me down when I'm going all crazy, right? But in sales, if you've got a startup and you need to convince the whole freaking world that they need you, either they need your solution or they need equity in your business to give you so they can give you some money so you can grow, then you got to be gutsy and you got to put all this stuff, this head trash aside, because Dom, I'm sure you would agree, it ain't personal. It's just, I think imposter syndrome, the main issue is people are too worried of fracturing their identity. They don't understand it's a role.
Ego.
Everyone's wearing a mask. Tell me.
Ego. They are afraid of losing their ego, and this is such a precious thing that you have. And to kind of put it out there and to be shattered to a lot of little pieces, nobody wants that. Come on, let's be real.
Yeah, so I actually have my 5 weaknesses of salespeople. You want to hear this?
Absolutely.
Yeah, guys, if you're listening, if you're hiring or if you have salespeople or you're a salesperson, here are the 5 weaknesses you want to overcome them. You let me know. I'll see how we can help you do that. Right. Number 1, need for approval. If your need to be liked is higher than your need to be effective, you will lose. And a lot of people get into sales because they want to be liked. They're looking to get their emotional needs met. Sales is not a place to get your emotional needs met. Sales is a place to go to the bank. Make money honestly, do it in an honest manner, of course, and go to the bank. Number 2, fear of rejection. How well do you deal with the word no? Because here's what we know. There's a lot more no's than yeses in this business. And if you don't feel comfortable with the word no, then this might maybe not for you. Or if you're not comfortable with the word no, but you realize it's part of your trade, then do something about it and get stronger at the word no. Because that's what this business is all about, right? And just so we're clear, I don't know if people know this, but the reason we don't feel comfortable with the word no is because we hear the word no 180,000 times until the age of 16. I don't know if you know that. Okay? And if you think about it, the first word that will come out of your mouth is usually the word no. Do you know people that will have a conversation with you, they'll agree, they'll say no and they'll agree? Yeah. And if you go into a store and someone walks up and asks you, can I help you? Most of the time, not all the time, most of the time we will go no. And we'll even raise our hand. So that no is so embedded. The reason people are afraid of no, they're afraid of rejection, they can't get past that is because they're terrified of getting rejected again. I say this, I want a freaking no. Give me a no. I love no's. No's are awesome. I'd rather get a no first. Don't give me a yes. I want a yes, please. Because that yes will turn into a no. Give me a no, that will turn into a yes. Fair? And that's what sales is all about, helping your buyers realize. By the way, a no is also okay. Perfectly fine. Get lots of yeses, lots of no's, nothing in the middle. No thinking overs are not, they're not an answer. They're a no, a slow no. They're a sad, really sad, lame, weak no. The prospect's weak because they're giving a think it over. They can't say no. But the salesperson is even weaker because the salesperson didn't even give permission to this buyer to say no. And so that's what they're getting. Copium. Number 3, professional visitors. These guys are really busy. They're always on calls, always on demos, always busy, but they're not closing any business. Number 4, emotional composure. That means happy ears. So this is a salesperson. They've got a prospect ain't qualified. They don't have a pain. They don't have money, and they're not the freaking decision maker, but the salesperson keeps that prospect in their funnel. They stalk them, for lack of a better word, because what they think they're hearing is a yes. I mean, there's no deal. The prospect knows there's no deal. The manager knows there's no deal. The salesperson's wife knows there's no deal. The kids know there's no deal. The mother-in-law knows there's no deal. Everyone at church knows there's no deal. Everyone knows there's no deal, apart from that salesman. There's a great movie, Dumb and Dumber. I don't know if you've ever seen it, with Jim Carrey. Anyway, they drive up and he just travels and runs after this woman he wants to be her boyfriend. And he asks her and she's like, "What? You crossed the country for me? Why?" He says, "Well, I want to ask you a question." He says, "What's the question?" He says, "What are the chances of you and I ever ending up together?" And he says, "What is it, like 1 in 10, 1 in 100? It's like 1 in a million." So there is a chance, he says. I mean, just think about it, guys. If you have opportunity in your funnel, which is not qualified, why is it there? Are you hoping it will close? So that's what emotional composure. So next is probability for success. And this is where things become a little real. So I don't know what that means in your world. In my world are the 3 B's. Belief, behavior, and baggage. I'm in the behavioral change business. I help companies and individuals modify behaviors to become extremely successful. The problem is that a lot of people have belief problems. They don't believe. Or they have baggage issues. And those will impact success. And finally, brings me to ego. If someone's ego is too high, they won't learn new things. They won't want to try new things. If someone's ego is too low, they can't learn new things. They can't try new things. So Warren versus Cat when it comes to ego is super important. We got to have people that are right in the middle. Now, we're not always hardwired that way, but we have to be open to the fact that we need to bring ourselves to the right state of mind so that we can do our jobs good and we can make a lot of money. So that's my take.
There's a reason, James, you are completely right. There's a reason why in every country, the top earners in the country are salespeople.
Yep.
There's a reason for that. And to your point, actually, about the bad hires. Yes, in the company, they can lose millions of dollars. In a startup, the company might die.
Oh, yeah.
That's a consequence, right? And James, you talked about EE in that big CRM company, right? That they struggle with imposter syndrome, but it can appear in the higher level, on the founder level, on the C-suite. And for 100%. Example, if the imposter syndrome is in place for a founder and they need to raise a round, which is, let's be honest, it's selling. You're selling the idea, you're selling the future. And they have an imposter syndrome, they might kill the company, okay, if they have that at the moment. So what is different, for example, for those folks to deal with imposter syndrome, where not EEs, we talk about like CEOs, like the people who are like handling a lot of them on the shoulders?
Yeah, good question. So when it comes to the CEOs, now here I'm going to give you an example, a very and there was a CEO I was working with when I met them. They were always screwing up their rounds. Always, they were screwing it up. And a lot of times, I truly believe that if you're raising money, you're under a lot of pressure. And the same way your prospect is treating your salespeople like a child, your investors are treating you, the founder, as a child. You have that child type of engagement, the parent-child. They're like, okay, show me what you got, show me your deck. And then they throw really powerful, uncomfortable questions. And then they say, listen, I like what you're doing, but here's what I'd like you to do. Go away, change this, and this. Come back to me in 6 months and let's talk. And then you go out there and 5 people say the same thing, and then you go out. They literally change their product because someone told them to.
Crazy.
I mean, yeah. Now, for the most part, a lot of times, again, I think this goes back to the way we've been brought up. And I had a CEO I was working with, and it was pretty apparent that, and this is something that they shared quite fast with me, was that eventually he admitted that he said to me, James, I'm looking to raise 10 million now. My father never made 10 million in his entire life. That number didn't even exist in our vocabulary at home. And what he would do is he would constantly self-sabotage himself, because in the back of his mind, it was, what would dad say? Because dad constantly said that it was really hard to make money. His dad used to work at the factory. And dad worked hard for every penny, and he'd give us a good life. He tried his best. And now I'm going to go out there and subconsciously, this guy was sabotaging himself because he just couldn't put himself in front of his father. And so I think a lot of times it's very individual, this stuff. And I truly believe that in order to be successful and as a founder, as a CEO, especially in a startup, you really got to be open to identifying those blind spots and personal gaps, and then working to overcome them. If that makes any sense. I think it's extremely individual.
Makes a lot of sense, actually. Yeah, usually you don't know what you don't know. That's a problem. But you need to work on that.
Not everybody's open to finding out. For those who are open to finding out, there are ways to find out today. That's why I'm saying, I think we live in a society where mediocrity has been, it's just standard now. Even if people are mediocre, they're a little better than everyone else. And the ones that are doing some personal work, they're way better. Even if you do a little personal work, just a little bit, you will be so much better. You'll be so much better in your relationships. And I have a saying, you want to enjoy the freedom of time, money, relationships, and purpose. And I think it really goes the opposite. It goes purpose, relationships, time, and then money. Yeah? If you have a good purpose, and you have good relationships, and you know how to manage your time well, the money will come. Everyone wants the money. I think the money will come once we are ready for it, if that makes any sense.
It's an outcome.
Yeah. The money will always come. If you're in sales, it'll come. It's there. There's never been a better time in history for sales like now. There's never been a better time in history for sales. Everyone's in pain.
Yeah.
You just need to know how to do it. And then another piece of this is the imposter syndrome also comes out, which I see a lot, is talk ratio. So I'm doing a lot of talking here today, but I usually keep my mouth shut. But I'm doing a lot of, that's why it's so nice to be a guest. Finally, I get to talk. But think about it. If you're in sales and you're doing 50, 60%, 70% of the talking, and what are you trying to do? Come on. Between you and I, both of us know, all of us know, any listener knows, you cannot convince your prospect to do a goddamn thing. You can't. Moreover, the more you talk, the more the prospect's thinking to themselves, this guy's trying to sell me, or this person's trying to sell me. And people don't like to be sold. They like to, they like to buy. They like it to make it their idea. And I think a lot of times imposter syndrome comes into the fact that we have to convince them. It's like little child trying to convince mommy and daddy, to buy them a toy. And if you have that relationship, sales is a conversation between adults about the truth. And if we're in that relationship where we're trying to prove something to ourselves or to our prospect, we will always be perceived as lower than them. No, this is equal business stature. It's all about being perceived as a trusted advisor. But if you come in as a vendor and your mindset is playing that vendor game and you act like a vendor and quack like a vendor and so on, then they'll put you there. And then that imposter syndrome will continue to play, because what we're doing is we're reinforcing that notion, creating what we call a self-fulfilled prophecy. At Sandler, we have a whole day workshop just on that, because it's all about how we're creating our own reality. And so it's all about our actions. I'm going to shut up now because I've spoken too much.
Okay, very interesting. And James, what is a little or let's just, I don't know, like a short duration exercise that, a salesperson or a startup founder can do every day to improve at least a little bit?
Okay, so at Sandler we have something called a success triangle, and the pinnacle of our success triangle. Success triangle is basically being able to connect our behavior, attitude, and technique. You see, we've understood that to be successful in sales and leadership, we have to be able to connect and be good in those three areas: behavior, attitude, and technique. Everyone comes to me because they want great technique. My job is to help people turn technique into a repetitive behavior by maintaining a very strong mindset. And so, taking that concept is find the stuff that you need to be better at. One is find a way to measure your gaps. I think one is really understanding what you need to work on. A lot of people just don't really know, or they're afraid to find out. And then at the pinnacle of our success triangle, when looking at the attitude triangle, we have something at the top of that is how you see yourself, how you see organization, and how you see your marketplace. And then the top of that, it's how you see yourself. It's how you see body, mind, and spirit. And I think that at the end of the day, if we don't take care of ourselves, it's very difficult for us to take care of our business. It's like you're on the plane and you have the oxygen mask. Now, we all know that when the oxygen mask falls, what do? You put it on your kid first? No, you put it on your self first, and then you put it on the kid. Now, I know that's counterintuitive to what we know, but they tell us to do that because if I cannot help myself, I cannot help someone else. And so I think really focusing on body, mind, and spirit. I'm a huge advocate of journaling and meditating and working out every day, especially if you're in sales. If you're in sales, you're looking to get what? What are you looking to hear from the prospect? Yes, right? And when you feel yes, hear yes, so how does that make you feel? It makes you feel good. And you probably know like 10, 20 minutes after you made the sale, you feel shitty again, right? Because you have to do it all over again. But it's like, yeah, you have to, right? It's a dopamine hit. Exactly. A dopamine, oxytocin, endorphins. There's a bunch of hormones and chemicals that are getting released. And so I believe that if you're a professional in this business, you cannot go out there hoping to get that dopamine hit from your sales call. You got to give it to yourself first. And so journaling, tell yourself how awesome you are. Fake it till you make it, or be it till you make it, right? If you don't feel you're awesome, tell yourself you're awesome. Trust me, if you tell yourself you're awesome every single freaking day for 5 years, guess what? You will be awesome. You will be awesome. That's it. And, meditate on it. Work out. Working out is crucial. If you're not exercising, then, I say this, you got to exercise every morning before you go to work. So you don't look for those hormones and those, that dopamine and the oxytocin. You don't look for it on the sales call. You're actually giving it to yourself. That's when you build yourself a very strong self-concept, strong self-esteem, and you learn how to separate your identity from your roles. We're all wearing masks. People are wearing masks. Everyone's got their mask on, but that is not real. It's a mask you put on your role. Your identity is who you are inside. You can't combine them. And so I know how to separate those is crucial.
Great. James, I think that's the perfect note to end the episode. Thanks a lot for sharing your thoughts. How people can reach out to you?
Yeah, cool. So first of all, thanks for having me. It's been a lot of fun. If you did not like what I said, don't reach out. But if you are still intrigued and you still want to reach out, please do. And if you do, any of this stuff resonates, I'm always happy to have a conversation. Don't know if I can work with you. I don't work with everybody, but always happy to have a chat first. You can find me, first of all, james.abraham, Abraham, at Sandler.com. You can check out my website, israel.sandler.com. And of course, on LinkedIn, you can find me, James Abraham Sandler, or you can find me at handbag I10 Always and the Growth Frequency on all social media. I10 Always and the Growth Frequency, and reach out. Happy to have a chat.
Great. And folks, don't forget to exercise. Bye-bye.
Yeah.